This is Avery After Dark, and I'm your host, Avery Ross. This episode is going to be a wild ride. All I can say is buckle up. It's one of the most disturbing hauntings ever recorded, a single mom and her children tormented in their home. It all began with a single knock on a wall, then another. Within days, furniture began moving on its own, doors slamming, mysterious sounds. Then it got bizarre. An entity in the home, the ghost of an old man, began possessing the young daughter, speaking through her in this deep, raspy voice, claiming he had died in that very house. But here's the thing that still haunts people to this day. The voice, the one calling itself Bill, it knew things that no child could ever know. Police, investigators, even the Warrens flocked to the house. An on-duty police officer signed a statement saying she saw a chair move on its own. Was it a hoax or one of the most intense hauntings of all time? This episode, we're discussing the Enfield Haunting. After this episode, you may have to sleep with the lights on, or at least a nightlight. If you love mysteries, Avery After Dark is the place for you. Subscribe to this channel, give this video a like, and turn on post notifications so you never miss an episode. I upload new videos every week. And in the comments, let me know where you are tuning in from in the world, and if you've heard of this case. And if you want more stories, more creepiness, join my memberships here on YouTube or the Avery After Dark Patreon. You get a bonus episode every month. New episode just dropped this week, and it is one of the craziest stories I have ever covered. So if you want more content and want to support the show, hit the links in the description and come hang out with me. It's time for you to get cozy, grab a little blanket to wrap yourself in, or hide behind. This is the Enfield Haunting. It all began in 1977 at this house, in a quiet neighborhood in Enfield, North London. And at the center of this case, the Hodgsons. Peggy, a single mom, and her 4 kids. They lived very normal lives at 284 Green Street, until it all began. It started when one of the daughters, Janet, 11, and her older sister, Margaret, heard strange knocking sounds coming from the walls and ceilings. Peggy investigated and couldn't find where the sound was coming from. Hey, maybe it's just old pipes. But then neighbors started coming over saying they were hearing these strange sounds coming from their house even when the family was gone. They're asking the family, what are those noises coming from your house? It was like these rhythmic knocking sounds, like something was gearing up. And the family was noticing some disturbing things inside the home. It started small, doors slamming, strange noises, massive temperature drops. Rooms would be ice cold with the heaters blasting. Toys mysteriously thrown across the room. The family would be hit with this awful smell like rotting meat. They'd walk into rooms and find water all over the floor. One of the earliest reported events happened on the night of August 30th, 1977, in the sister's bedroom. A heavy chest of drawers reportedly slid across the room by itself, pushed toward the door by an invisible force, even after Peggy tried to push it back. She said it felt like someone was trying to force it forward, saying whatever it was felt inhumanly strong. This was the moment she realized something was very wrong. Finally, the haunting gets so bad, Peggy calls police. She was getting desperate. She tells them that furniture is moving on its own. Her daughters are hearing these strange knocking sounds. This was a rental, and the family had never experienced anything like this before. Her children were terrified. A lot of the activity was centered around her 2 daughters, Janet, 11, and Margaret, 13. This case inspired the second Conjuring film. In the film, Janet is really the one that is being haunted and tormented the most. But according to reports, this entity, whatever was in the home, was really going after both Janet and Margaret. After Peggy calls, authorities arrive, probably expecting a dull burglary, a domestic dispute, or the usual neighbor complaint. But nope. As they were inside the home speaking with Peggy and she's telling them about the activity, it happened. Police Constable Carolyn Heaps reportedly witnessed an armchair wobble, then slide 3 to 4 feet across the room on its own accord. She examined the room for strings, rope, magnets, but she found nothing. And she signed a sworn statement verifying the event. So this is really one of the rare cases where police are brought into the haunting very early and are basically confirming there is something really bizarre going on in this house. Police basically tell Peggy, we don't know how to help you. So she's on her own. And every day the activity is getting worse and worse. Then the media gets a hold of the story, and boy oh boy, they ran with it. And after the story hit the news, paranormal investigators began reaching out to Peggy. She invited them to the home, and they began their research. Then came the voice. A deep, gravelly, masculine voice that called itself Bill. This voice, it didn't come from a closet or from underneath a bed. It came from Janet Hodgson herself. Janet was just 11 years old and could switch between her normal child voice and Bill mid-sentence. When this would happen, Janet would reportedly slip into a trance and claim she felt like she was being controlled by something behind her. Oh, that gives me a chill down my back. That is so scary. When she would come out of these trances, she wouldn't remember anything. She didn't remember the things Bill said or did. Let's talk about Bill. This man was not subtle or shy. He could talk, insult the family, throw things, and scare the pants off anyone who entered the house. At one point, Bill told Peggy that she was a stupid cow. You know, Bill, that's not very nice. But Peggy wasn't offended. She was terrified that her daughter was being possessed by this spirit, this entity. Bill could do more than talk. Walls would be scratched, doors slammed. Bill would give specific details about his life and death. When questioned, he said he died in the very home they lived in a chair in the living room from a hemorrhage. These details were not public knowledge, and they were later confirmed by Bill Wilkins' son. He said, yes, my father was named Bill Wilkins. He did die there of a hemorrhage in that chair in the front room in June 1963. I'm sure you could find that Bill passed away in the house, but the details, specifically where and how he died, this was not common knowledge, and this was before the internet. So how else would Janet have known that, if there wasn't something paranormal going on here? Let's get into some of the creepy things that Bill Wilkins said through Janet. When asked who he was, he said, "I'm Bill, just Bill." His voice was deep and came from Janet's diaphragm, not her throat. When questioned about how he died, he said, "I went blind. Then I had a hemorrhage, and I fell asleep, and I died in the chair downstairs." Investigators and Bill's family later confirmed this matched the real Bill Wilkins' death. When asked why he stayed in the house, he simply said, "I like to annoy you." Then investigators tried to provoke him, get a reaction. He snarled, "Shut up, you." Then a stream of vulgarities that no 11-year-old girl should know. They said the voice often sounded angry, bitter, and much older. During a seance-like moment the investigators had, Bill reportedly said, "I'll bring you over here, to the other side." He was asked what he wanted. He said, "To haunt you." Investigators asked where he was in the room. He said, "Behind you." He was asked why he moved objects. His response, "Energy, yours." Bill was asked if he knew he was dead. He responded, "Of course I'm dead. Where do you think I've been?" Then, during this line of questioning, it got really quiet, and the room suddenly got extremely cold. They asked Bill what was going on, and he said, "They're coming." He refused to explain who they were. Oh, I got chills again. I don't like that. When asked if Bill was the only spirit there, he said, "There's more than one of us." He was asked what the spirits wanted. He said, "This house, it's ours." When investigators asked to prove if he was real, he said, "I'll show you." Then a drawer slid across the room. And finally, he was asked what his feelings were towards the family. Did he like them? And his answer was really disturbing. He said, "No, but I like the girl," referring to Janet. That's a nightmare. This really freaked out the family and investigators. As I mentioned, police investigated the activity, and with cops basically saying, "We don't know how to help you," the Society for Psychological Research, aka SPR, got involved. Maurice Gross and Guy Lyon Playfair moved into the house with cameras, tape recorders, and an optimism from some people that clearly did not value sleep. They captured flying chairs, knocking sounds, and of course, Janet switching effortlessly between her voice and Bill's. Gross and Playfair watched bedroom curtains twist themselves into a tight, braided spiral while no one was touching them. They tried to recreate it manually, and they couldn't. Tape recorders and cameras malfunctioned constantly. Investigators documented tapes snapping even when the recorder wasn't running, batteries draining instantly, cameras refusing to work only inside the house, objects teleported across the room. Documented accounts involved a Lego brick shooting across the room and hitting a photographer in the eye, causing a bruise, toys being thrown across the room. Janet was pulled from her bed in her sleep. Peggy often found Janet on the floor far from her bed, at the top of the stairs, in a different room entirely, once even stuck inside the fireplace, terrified. Janet claimed she was being dragged around by this entity like a puppet. Every day, the activity was getting more intense. And now, here's where things get extra Hollywood. The famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren also visited the Hodgsons. The Warrens looked into the case and believed it was genuine. And Lorraine did her thing. And she felt that Bill was a malevolent spirit, possibly residual energy or something attached to Janet. Lorraine reportedly felt a darker energy in the house as well. And Ed did a lot of interviews with the family, specifically Janet, in those times where she was being possessed by Bill. This is depicted in the movie. I'm a pretty big fan of the Conjuring films. I think they did a great job. This case inspired The Conjuring too. I just saw the most recent one about the Smurl family haunting, which we did an episode on that, and that was a really scary one. The farmer with the axe, that freaked me out. But back to this case, the Warrens believed that there was something darker in the home, something demonic. And this was controlling the spirit of Bill Wilkins, hiding behind it. But there were a lot of skeptics in this case, and this is where the story gets a little muddy. There was a lot of controversy if this was real or if this was the kids making this activity up. A video camera set up in an adjoining room caught Janet bending spoons and attempting to bend an iron bar. Gross also saw Janet banging a broom handle on the ceiling and hiding his tape recorder. And Playfair said he noticed something suspicious. According to Playfair, Bill displayed a habit of suddenly changing the topic. It was a habit that Janet also had. And then Janet and Margaret admitted something that really changed everything about this case. They admitted to faking some of the activity. Gross and Playfair were pretty viciously mocked for being so easily fooled by children, but they maintained that even though some of the activity was indeed faked by the two girls, other incidents were very much real and genuine. But why would the girls do this? Reporters who covered the haunting extensively at the time said the girls staged some of the incidents to get a more sensational story. And as far as Bill possessing Janet, the former president of SPR, John Bellhoff, investigated this and said that Janet was simply doing a ventriloquist act. But as it was shown in the film, investigators tried sealing Janet's mouth shut with tape or filling it with water to prevent ventriloquism, and the voice reportedly continued, albeit fainter. But they did this, and they could still hear Bill coming forward through Janet, even with her mouth full of water or taped shut. So I don't know how that would be possible, or how you would even go about faking that if you were an 11-year-old girl. Additionally, a speech specialist was asked to analyze Janet and Bill's voice, and she said that the voice was coming from the false vocal cords, and said this would be very rare for a child to be able to control. According to later interviews, the family, especially the daughters, said the events deeply traumatized them. While there were admissions of some hoaxed episodes, they maintained that the majority of the activity was real and that the memories stayed with them forever. The Hodgson family experienced terror for months. Chairs, beds, and even toys were flung around. Peggy got pinned to the floor by a rocking chair, and Janet continued channeling Bill. According to investigators, there were instances where Janet appeared to levitate or be thrown across rooms. One photograph taken during the case even seems to show her mid-air. During the peak of the haunting, neighbors, her sister, and investigators all claimed they saw Janet lift off her bed. A neighbor across the street saw her floating in mid-air through a window. And this photo captured Janet appearing to be launched into the air, though skeptics say she could have just been jumping. Still, too many eyewitnesses for investigators to dismiss. Neighbors continued to hear strange activity coming from the house, and they would see things in the windows when they would look inside, like chairs rocking on their own. Neighbors would frequently come over and check on the family, and they said it sounded like someone or something knocking in code. Even when the family was gone, out of the house, the home was empty, but the neighbors are still hearing these sounds. And it was pretty interesting. Investigators felt like there was something to this, so they tested it. They felt this was an intelligent haunting, so they did an experiment, and they found the entity in the home could somewhat communicate with them and answered questions with knocks. They'd ask, "Are you here?" One knock. They would ask, "How many people are in the room?" And there would be a correct number of knocks. At one point, they asked it to count to 10, and they claimed it matched perfectly, even changing rhythm as if it was annoyed. So police were a part of this investigation, paranormal investigators, and also the press. Reporters spent a lot of time in the house and witnessed activity. They saw furniture moving, shadows. They would feel icy cold drafts, hear disembodied voices. And of course, as we covered, skeptics had their say about this case. And it didn't help matters that the girls admitted to faking some of the activity. Because I think they thought, well, if they're faking some of it, they could be faking all of it. But with police, neighbors, and multiple investigators witnessing unexplainable activity, they felt that something strange was definitely happening in this house. Critics suggested that this activity only began when witnesses were present, but the family said no, there was plenty of activity when no one was around. And there's some numbers to back this up. In this haunting, over an 18-month period, there were more than 2,000 incidents recorded. In these cases, you always wonder, well, why don't you just move? Hello, U-Haul. But the Hodgsons said it followed them. They slept at neighbors' houses and relatives' homes, but the knocking followed. So did the whispering. And Bill followed. Janet's trances continued, even when they were out of the home. The activity stopped only after Janet went to a psychiatric hospital for testing and rest. The haunting tapered off by 1978. The family slowly went back to normal. Janet and Margaret grew up and went on with their lives, occasionally reporting residual weirdness, but nothing like the chaos of 1977. I believe this haunting is so fascinating to people because it's so controversial. Many see it as a mixture. Maybe some of the events were real, maybe some of them were faked. Even today, the story really sparks a heated debate with people. Believers say it's undeniable evidence of something beyond our understanding. On the other hand, skeptics will say it was a dramatic performance, amplified by fear, media attention, and kids being mischievous. What do you make of the Enfield haunting? Do you believe it's real or a hoax? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Subscribe to Avery After Dark, give this video a like, and turn on post notifications. And share this show wherever you can. Next episode is already in the works, and it's a creepy one. Until then, check out these videos. You could pick that one, very spooky, or that one, very mysterious. Which one are you going to pick?